Welcome back, everybody, for another edition of Pierce the Canvas. This, of course, is Pierce, as always. Feels good to be back here doing another podcast for you guys. Today is September 30th, 2020, and we got another episode of AEW Dynamite in the books. Another big episode here. We had quite a lot of things prepared for tonight, as we had Eddie Kingston choosing an opponent for Jon Moxley for the main event, which literally, like, in the middle of the main event, I realized was for the world title. I didn't actually, like, notice that. Like, even on, I'm looking at my screen, and you could see the matches. Even on the Jon Moxley, like, match card, it doesn't say it's for the title. So even till now, I don't even know for sure. But we'll get to that. We'll get to who his opponent was. We had Isaiah Cassidy versus Chris Jericho. Isaiah Cassidy, like, I think it's his first singles match in AEW. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. FTR versus SCU for the tag titles in a 20-minute rush of glory or something like that, I think is what they called it. So instead of, like, the typical, like, 60-minute time limit for matches, they implemented the 20-minute time limit. Last week they explained a bit more about that. The show started with something I was very, very shocked to see, which was Ricky Starks versus Darby Allin. That was the first match, and JPEG Mafia was in Darby Allin's vignette. I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't even realize who it was, but I sure did. I was like, oh my god, that's freaking JPEG Mafia. And he was cutting a little bit of a promo for Darby Allin. To be honest, I was in such shock about the fact that JPEG Mafia was there. I missed maybe a couple key points, but I did hear that he called Ricky Starks a bitch. And they had, like, you know, Darby Allin always has some sort of symbolism in his vignette, so they had a body bag, and JPEG Mafia just, like, slides the body bag down this ramp or something like that. I was just, like, so, like, crazed that JPEG Mafia was on my screen. I was like, holy crap. I saw it, like, his concerts live. I, like, saw him real close and shit. It was like, oh, he's on TV. But anyway, so the match was pretty good too. Darby Allin right off the bat was locking in, like, headlocks, armbar submissions. He landed an apron suplex to Ricky Starks. Clearly there's a lot of bad blood between the two, you know, over the last months. Ricky Starks always coming out dressed up as Darby Allin, making fun of him, beating him up and shit. I guess Darby Allin also ripped his back up with that skateboard, so it's quite a heated feud between these two. Soon after that apron suplex spot, Brian Cage starts coming out, so I guess he was coming out to interfere. But then somebody came for the save, and who was it? It wasn't JPEG Mafia, it was Will Hobbs. Imagine that. But yeah, Will Hobbs came out, and he and Brian Cage started to brawl. Later on in the match, Darby Allin went for a destroyer on Ricky Starks. Now, see, when Darby Allin does destroyers, I have no problem with it. It's just picture perfect. It was great. That was for a near fall. Darby does his over-the-top stunner, goes for a springboard, but Darby counters with a huge spear midair. You know, this guy keeps spearing Darby Allin, and he's, like, trying to cut him in half with these spears. Freaking amazing. That also led to a near fall. Starks is going for, like, basically a top rope. It's not a powerbomb. What's that move called that Sheamus used to do as his finisher? The one where you lift him off the top of your head and slam him down. Basically, Ricky Starks is going for that on the top rope to Darby Allin. But Darby was able to, like, escape and knock down Ricky Starks off the rope. And he went for his coffin drop on Ricky Starks on his... Like, so Ricky Starks was on his stomach, so his back was up. And Darby jumped onto his back. That didn't look too bad. For the win. So good match. I highly doubt it's going to be the last one we see between these two. I'm sure the rivalry is going to live on past this. I would love to see more matches between these two. And then next up we had Cody come out, but he had, like, the exact same setup as last week. So they did the whole, like, red, you know, blood or whatever on the Titantron and the dramatic music. So I don't know, I hope he's not going to do that, like, every week. But They did the exact same thing as he did when he returned last week. And Dasha was in the ring for the interview and asks how Cody's feeling. After all this time, we've been missing Cody. Of course, he had a pretty rough time with Brody Lee, when he attacked him after the TNT title match. Was it after? Well, I guess it was during. It was really the discus lariat that caused his injury. Cody said, like he was told by his trainers, like Al Snow, that, never wrestle injured, never wrestle when you're hurt. And Cody was just saying, pre-pandemic, everyone backstage would always shake hands, which you would think is a sign of respect, but the true reason is because we need each other. And he's explaining how he's ashamed for losing the title in 3 minutes. He started to kind of contemplate the situation because he's on a show with big names, that Go Big show. He's on a show with big names like Rosario Dawson and Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg is somebody who changed the hip-hop game. Rosario Dawson is a renowned actress, and there's all these other people on the show, but who's he? He's the guy who was beat in 3 minutes, right? And then he starts, like, putting over the champions, like the real people in this company, like Hikaru Shida, John Moxley, Brody Lee. He even did mention Brody Lee, because after all, he is the TNT champion. And Dasha asked him, so, okay, talking about Brody Lee, do you accept the dog collar match? And he says, for a match that unsafe, that bloody, that violent, and I think he said something else, he was like, no. And then he leaves the ring, starts walking to the back, and then he stops, and he's like, no, I think he comes back to the ring, he was like, no, as in no regrets, and he said no as in no something else, I forgot what he said, but he was like, I accept the challenge, he's like screaming into the mic, and then Brody Lee comes out immediately in a really cool suit. I liked his blue suit, I enjoyed that. He and Cody are brawling. A bunch of like random wrestlers. I guess a bunch of the wrestlers who stand as fans and security and Dark Order members are coming to break it up. And then Brandy comes out, and I thought Brandy was just coming out to play the wife role to I don't know, like calm down Cody. But she just runs straight to the top rope and does like a dive onto Dark Order. That was kind of cool. And then she begins brawling with Anna Jay. Nyla Rose decided at one point to join in on the fun, beating up some random other female wrestler. They mentioned her name. I don't remember what her name is. We may have seen her before. I don't know, on Dynamite, maybe on Dark. But anyway, Brody appears to be leaving at one point, but rushes back to the ring, continues a brawl. That happened like 2 or 3 times where he's like, okay, I'm done brawling. And he leaves to the back, but then comes back to start brawling again. And then, it's confirmed next week we will see the dog collar match between Cody Rhodes and Brody Lee for the TNT title. So I'm very excited for that. I've never lived to see live a dog collar match. I don't know if any have taken place, while I've been watching wrestling, which is, here's some backstory about me, maybe since around 2008 or so. It's how long I've been watching this stuff. So I get to see my first dog collar match. So next we have Tony Schiavone interviewing FTR, and they, again, as I mentioned earlier, will be fighting FCU for the titles. So Tony just asks them, what are you guys thinking before your match? And supposedly FTR were supposed to face Best Friends. I don't know if it was last week or whatever. I guess they couldn't do it because of the match they had the week prior to last week, which was a parking lot fight. They were too beat up. And Cash is just explaining that Best Friends aren't ready for a title shot because they're just a backyard act. Cash says that SCU are the best tag teams one of the best tag teams in the world right now. For FTR's legacy, they have to beat this team. Dax talks about the Young Bucks not deserving a chance. I think Tony asked a question regarding the Young Bucks, and Dax went on to explain that they don't deserve a chance. They keep losing their matches. They lost that title match they had recently. They mentioned a few other incidences in which they lost. It doesn't matter if Dave Meltzer is so crazy about them. They don't deserve the chance. And then Matt comes out of nowhere and just super kicks Tony Schiavone. And that was freaking hilarious. And then that was pretty much the end of that. We see the counter interview. So Dasha's with SCU. That didn't go quite as long and wasn't quite as entertaining. Scorpio Sky said the opportunities knocked on the door, so we're going to take it. And Frankie Kazarian said that they are guaranteed to now be two-time champions. And on their way out, a little weird thing that I actually completely forgot about. I'm reading my notes as we go along here. I just now remembering this. On their way out, Sean Spears was just standing there, and he was looking like real suspicious, just staring at SCU. And he's like, "All right, good luck, guys." And they're like, "Okay." So I was like, I thought Sean Spears would do something in the match, but nothing actually. Spoiler alert: nothing ended up happening. Like I said, I forgot. Just reading my notes, I was like, "Oh yeah, that happened." So the match is beginning. Adam Page decides to join the announced team, of course, drink in hand. I was kind of wondering like why he's there, but they explained, like JR was asking him if like, are you done with the tag team stuff? Like it seems like your partner is, like Kenny seems to be. You know, he announced officially that he's going back to the singles ranks. Adam Page says that he wants to stay in the tag team scene. Like that's why he's out here for this match, just so he could kind of see what's going on, study these teams. Obviously, they lost to FTR. And Page kind of made it clear, too, that he doesn't really buy that Kenny Omega's done in the tag team scene because he hasn't even had a singles match yet. Since the tag team thing started between these two, he hasn't had any singles matches, or at least not any time recently. So into the match, Cash Wheeler falls on his face, like bouncing off the ropes, and he blames Christopher Daniels for it, and the referee kicked out Christopher Daniels. That's something I've never really actually saw, like, in a tag team match, like tag team heels. I've never seen them do that. So I'll explain it a little more clearly. Basically, Scorpio Sky and Cash Wheeler are, like, kind of bouncing each other off the ropes. When Cash Wheeler bounces off the rope, Christopher Daniels is ringside, like very close to where Cash Wheeler was bouncing off the rope, and then Cash Wheeler falls purposefully on his face to make it look like Christopher Daniels grabbed his leg or something. And then, yeah, and that got Christopher Daniels kicked out. The ref bought it and kicked his ass out. Scorpio Sky landed a great-looking tope suicide, or not a tope suicide actually. It was like more like the Kenny Omega kind of tope onto FTR while they're chasing after Frankie Kazarian. Kaz holds FTR's legs while Scorpio crossbodies down Cash, and they both go for a pin, which landed for a near fall. Scorpio went for a cutter at one point for a near fall, which was absolutely picture perfect. Cash Wheeler gets stuck on the top rope and attempts and Scorpio Sky attempts a superplex. Oh, sorry, actually, I got that kind of wrong there. So yeah, again, Cash Wheeler is stuck on the top rope and he himself attempts a superplex. Dax actually reverses it. Scorpio Sky comes to help, and Frankie Kazarian did this, like, really weird-looking slam from the top rope. Landed kind of awkwardly. That ended up in a near-fall situation. Scorpio Sky is going for tons of near falls at this point. At one point, Tully grabs Cash's arms to prevent a pin attempt. So I was kind of wondering at that point, like, he's physically interfering in the match. Like, Cash was about to get pinned by Scorpio Sky, but Tully just holds his arms to prevent him from getting pinned. And I was like, and it was very, very obvious. Like, it was a good 5 or 6 seconds. I'm like, the ref didn't see that? Why wouldn't he kick him out? They're like, okay. Scorpio attempts a suplex from the apron. Cash kind of just, like, lands down into a pin position, and Tully holds Scorpio Sky's leg, like, from outside the ring to keep him down. So two things about that. Again, Tully's holding Scorpio Sky's leg, and also his leg is, like, underneath the rope. I think his other leg was, like, hitting the rope. I'm like, that should have been a rope break and a disqualification. So many things, but this ref freaking sucks. Anyway, so because Tully was holding Scorpio Sky's leg down, it ended up being a 3 count for the win. Excalibur next up reveals a World Championship tournament. I believe is for the World Championship. We already know 3 of the contenders are Jungle Boy, Rey Fenix, and Kenny Omega. So Adam Page was still at the announce desk while the announcers were talking about this, and he immediately was just like, "Wait, what do you say? Like Kenny's in this?" And he was just bummed out, man. I felt bad for the guy, and he just gets up with his drink and he just leaves off to the back. So it's official. Kenny Omega's no longer in the tag team scene, and Adam Page is gonna have to figure out what he's gonna do. So next up, we have Isaiah Cassidy with Matt Hardy and Mark Quinn versus Chris Jericho with the Inner Circle. And big news being that next week we're going to see Chris Jericho's 30th anniversary in wrestling. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of fun segments next week. Matt Hardy comes out with again Private Party, and he's armed with the chair because he doesn't want to take any chances. He was already beat up, kind of blindsided the other week, and he got his knee all messed up. So this guy's not messing around. He came out with a chair. I think Jericho also, he came out with his bat. So logically, Matt can't just come empty-handed. So when the match starts, Jericho's just pushing Cassidy around, and Cassidy just gets pissed off about this and starts going off on Jericho with punches, hurricanranas, arm drags. Gets a near fall in, like right at the beginning of the match. Jericho at one point gets sent over the barricade, and so there's a bunch of wrestlers on the other side of the barricade. Jericho's just looking at Luther and just kind of pushes him. And here we go with the ref again. There's no way she didn't see this. It was Aubrey Edwards in this match. Luther just begins beating up Jericho and starts punching him, and nothing happens. I'm like, what's going on here? So yeah, Luther interfered in the match and nothing happened. It almost felt like it was a shoot kind of thing. It wasn't though. I'll explain later. Jericho eventually made it back into the ring. Cassidy's able to take him down and lands a swanton for a near fall. Cassidy lands 2 springboard stunners on Jericho. That was 2 near falls. He did 1 near fall, and then he did another, which also ended up being a near fall. A really cool spot I enjoyed was Jericho went for a lion salt, which, just side note, it's kind of crazy that Jericho could still do that, man. That guy's he's getting old, dude. So kudos to Jericho for being able to pull off that flip like that. But anyway, it didn't land this time. Cassidy, I think he put his knees up. And then he immediately went up and landed his own lion salt on Jericho for a near fall. Jericho gets back up, and Cassidy lands a code breaker on Jericho for another near fall. Cassidy goes for a springboard and lands into a Judas effect for the win for Chris Jericho. Cassidy was just going for a springboard. He's up in the air. Boom. Elbow right to the face. Inner Circle immediately. They didn't waste any time. They come into the ring to beat up Isaiah. Matt goes for the save with his chair. Good thing he brought that. Inner Circle retreats. Jericho starts beating up Luther ringside. Hager is beating up Serpentico. So again, I guess Luther and Serpentico are a tag team. Again, this is why I know it's not a shoot, because obviously that spot was to set up next week's match, which will be Jericho and Hager versus Luther and Serpentico. Interesting. So I guess he'll fight Luther and Serpentico on his 30th anniversary. And next we had a weird segment. It was Kip and Miro, Kip Sabian and Miro. Kip says that he needs his wedding to be epic, and then we just see Miro and Kip kind of engaging in random activities. I don't know if these activities are going to be involved in I don't know if it was actually the wedding that they were planning here. It might have actually been just the bachelor party. My mistake. So it's for the bachelor party, and again we see them engaging in all kinds of activities like. Miro's throwing balls at the screen. I don't really know what that was about. Kip Sabian's, he's doing the axe throwing stuff. We see Miro and Kip Sabian playing at an arcade. And then at one point, I guess I was supposed to know who this person was. I don't. I knew who JPEG Mafia was. I don't know who this guy was. But anyway, so they're still playing at the arcade, and the camera cuts just on Miro. But then when the camera zooms back out, there's some random guy there in a USA themed kind of suit. I think he had long hair. I don't even remember what he looked like. But he basically just tells Miro, I got a crazy idea for your bachelor party. And it was like, okay, I think the announcer said, oh, this guy is going to be involved in the bachelor party. I have absolutely no idea who it is. It might have been some kind of celebrity. I have no clue. I have no information about this guy. So next up, Dasha's in the ring, or not in the ring, backstage with best friends, and kind of just ask him where they're at. Best friends, Chuck and Trent had the parking lot fight a couple weeks ago. Last week, Orange Cassidy got beat up by Brody for the TNT title match. After Dasha asks them, they didn't get a lot of time to answer the question. FTR just came immediately and just starts making fun of best friends, just saying, you guys just belong on the mid card. We'll always belong on top. Best friends, they're getting annoyed and they just kind of pretend to hit FTR. They flinch like a bunch of little scaredy cats, and then out went Orange Cassidy into the ring for a match versus 10 of the Dark Order. At the beginning of the match, 10 is putting, they always have to start with his shades. Every one of his matches has to start with his shades. 10 puts Orange Cassidy's shades on John Silver before attacking him and laying him out with, he did like one crazy slam move that I liked. He did a couple suplexes. Orange Cassidy at one point's groggy, and 10 is like putting Orange Cassidy's hands into his own pockets. And he just like kicks him, does this crazy big boot spot while Orange Cassidy is standing on the apron, knocks his ass down. While they're just showboating outside the ring, Dark Order do the best friends hug outside the ring, and they even did the camera bumper as well. And Taz yells out, "You got to give the people what they want." That's how it goes, right, Excalibur? That was kind of funny. Cassidy lands his DDT and Orange Punch, and lands that same pile driver finisher he's been doing for a while now. He landed that for the win. I think I heard the announcers say that the move is called like Beach Break or something. I don't know. I could have totally misheard, but that is what I heard, Beach Break. And yeah, that was the end of that match. So next up we see MJF backstage. Wardlow has a big like present in his hand, and MJF knocks on the door. He just opens it up, and in the room are Inner Circle. MJF is opening up the present, and there's a bunch of jackets and a bunch of Inner Circle jackets. He starts handing it out to almost everybody in Inner Circle. He forgot, unfortunately, their short one jacket. Couldn't get anything for Sammy Guevara. MJF is profusely apologizing. Inner Circle's just like, okay, listen, man, like, why are you here? Jericho's like, let me just ask you, dude. I asked you way back. Let me ask you again. Do you want to join Inner Circle? MJF asks. MJF is like, listen, I've had the question for how so long as well. Jericho, do you want me to join Inner Circle? And then they did that thing again where it's like, do you want to join Inner Circle? No, do you want me to join Inner Circle? And they're just fighting back and forth. Jericho says, all right. I appreciate the gifts. That was a classy move. MJF says that he's excited for Jericho's 30th next week. And then he leaves. So that was kind of the end of their conversation. Sammy Guevara's kind of just there all pissed off. He calls MJF a loser. But Jericho's like, no, okay, Sammy, give this guy a chance. He might not be such a loser. So who knows? Maybe this is going to lead to like a Sammy Guevara MJF program. I don't want this to happen, but maybe Sammy Guevara is going to get beat up by Inner Circle while they bring in MJF. And then Sammy goes off on his own singles thing. Who knows? But yeah, that was kind of interesting there. So we'll see where that goes. And we all know eventually it'll end up being the MJF versus Chris Jericho, which will be like the biggest match. So next we had Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, with Reba. I think her name's Reba, not Rebel, versus Red Velvet. This was Britt Baker's first match in ring in a very, very long time. It might have been like close to May or so, like May or June. So very long time since we got to see her in ring. At the first part of the match, Red Velvet lands one of those like Mysterio style bulldogs that lended to a near fall. That was kind of cool. Britt Baker comes back with a big clothesline, double arm hook, butterfly suplex. Baker gets a super kick and then lands a fisherman's neck breaker. And for the finish, obviously didn't go very long, right? It was just a jobber match. For the finish, she did like this weird, it was like basically a mix between a kick in the head and a curb stomp. And she won with that move, so I don't know, maybe that's like a new signature finisher move of hers. Um, so that got her the win. Post match, she locks in her lockjaw submission. Reba was there to equip her with a glove before inserting her hand into Red Velvet's mouth. She locks that in for a little while. And that was the end of that. Next week, this is part of the show where they announce some matches for next week. We have Jericho and Hager facing Luther and Serpentico. We are actually going to see Brian Cage versus Will Hobbs, and that's going to be for the FTW Championship. So they're actually going to be doing something with that title. That's cool. I'm looking forward to see how that goes. I guess the FTW title is just going to be the big guy, just the big guy title that they just randomly put on the line for feuds with giant wrestlers. So that'll be entertaining. And of course, again, we'll have Brody Lee versus Cody for the TNT Championship. And they also talked a little bit about how Jon Moxley will face Lance Archer in a couple weeks. So Eddie Kingston comes out with the Lucha Bros, and he has Bryce Remsburg, the referee, with him, just kind of dragging him out. I didn't realize Bryce Remsburg, he's the one who refereed the match last week. So Eddie Kingston starts cutting his promo, reminds us that he wrestled Jon Moxley, who put him in a bulldog choke. The thing is, I never tapped out. Eddie Kingston never tapped. So he got screwed twice here. He never got eliminated from the Battle Royal, and now he never tapped out. So what's going on here? So Jon Moxley ended up giving Eddie Kingston the chance to pick an opponent for him, pick his next opponent. Before we get to that, though, Eddie Kingston is asking Remsburg, what gave you the balls to ring the bell last week? And Remsburg is like, listen, man, I know we're great friends outside of here. I know you know my kids, you know my wife, whatever. We've been great friends for 18 years. But in the ring, my job is to protect you, to protect the talent. And you were unresponsive, so I had to end the match. And so they start cornering this poor guy, Lucha Bros and Eddie Kingston, so they're about to beat his ass. But then Moxley's music comes on. He comes out with a barbed wired bat, and Eddie and company retreat. So Eddie starts cutting a promo on Moxley. He says, listen, man, you ain't going to be fighting me. We already fought last week. You ain't fighting either of these guys. And the Butcher enters the ring, and he tells Jon Moxley, look behind you. You're going to be facing the Butcher. And so there you have it. We get Jon Moxley versus the Butcher. I still don't know 100% it was. And that's kind of a spoiler in itself, but whatever. The Butcher immediately lays out Moxley. Moxley at one point in the match goes for a tope, but the Butcher clocks this guy with a forearm or an elbow or something, and he takes Moxley's leg and just slams it on the apron. Butcher got a near fall from a sidewalk slam, exactly Braun Strowman's finisher. Moxley, he's selling the leg injury from the apron spot earlier. So the Butcher starts locking in Boston Crabs, of course, because those are always good for leg targeting matches. Moxley's leaning on the barricade at one point, and the Butcher is running after him. Moxley moves out of the way and throws the Butcher into the barricade, and Butcher's whole body flies into it. It was kind of funny the way he sold it. Moxley selling his leg injury. The Butcher goes for a crossbody for a near fall. Moxley's going for a German suplex. The Butcher reverses it into a Uranagi, huge Uranagi for near fall. I think he also went for a big leg drop around that same spot. Moxley's going for a superplex on one leg, lands it, but the Butcher rolls it into a leg submission. Moxley escapes and goes for a jumping pile driver for a near fall. I don't know about kicking out of that move, man. That was brutal. Moxley brings the Butcher to the top rope. Butcher pushes off Moxley. I think Moxley was going for a top rope paradigm shift. Again, Butcher pushed him off and did a crossbody, I think from the middle rope for a near fall. Moxley was able to quickly land his paradigm shift after that near fall and went for his bulldog choke again. And Remsburg called the match off, so he did the same thing he did last week to Kingston. There is no tap out. So the thing is about that, I think, is it's Jon Moxley's way of trying to put over the opponent. You know, he did it to Eddie Kingston last week. He did it to Brody Lee in the world title match before. And Brody Lee hadn't tapped out, right? It was probably Remsburg just ended the match. So I like those types of finishes for certain wrestlers because, again, they're not definitively losing per se. It's just the referee deciding that they can't continue. So they did that here to the Butcher. And the episode ended with Moxley staring down Kingston, and he stands tall as champion. Eddie Kingston just flipping out, pushing barricades around, and he's pretty angry. But yeah, there you go. Another pretty average, pretty good episode of AEW Dynamite. Again, we got a pretty stacked few weeks coming up. Again, next week is the 30th anniversary of Jericho's career. The week after that is going to be the AEW 1 year anniversary. So next couple weeks are going to be real fun around here, and tune back into Pierce the Canvas podcast. We'll be here to cover everything. Like and subscribe as always. Thanks as always for tuning in. Love you guys. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll be back for more AEW next week. Take care, y'all.